Hey, good morning, Patriots. Welcome to Monday. It is another Monday, and you're welcome, and we're welcome. And it's good to see that you're all up because we're up, and so is Chris. Chris is already here. Good morning, Chris.
Yeah, I'm already here. That's your Monday mornings right now. I actually had my coffee, so I'm here, and it's bushy-tailed and everything else. And maybe if I'm very good, I'll get a presidential pardon sometime down the line for something I
Well,
might
I
have
mean,
done.
let's talk about that real quick. First off, you got to commit a crime to get a pardon. So, do you have a good crime in mind to go do and then get the pardon? I mean, tell us about your dream crime, Chris.
Well, I always wanted to hack into the Pentagon. No, I'm
Oh, oh
joking. I'm
my.
joking. No, no. No,
Yeah.
I'm triggered everybody. No, I've never wanted to hack into the Pentagon because I'd probably lose with geothermal nuclear
There's a
wars
movie
again.
about that. Wasn't Matthew
Yeah,
Broderick in that or something?
and Eddie Deason was in that movie too, by the way.
Yeah, War
Yeah,
Game. Wasn't
yeah,
it War
War
Game?
Games.
I think so.
So
Yeah.
so that's the reference, but on a serious note, I'm not going to I wouldn't do something like that.
No.
I don't think I really have a crime I could think of.
No,
Maybe
it's gotta have strippers and blow and relatives who, just saying that are involved in your own criminal activities. It's gotta be like it's like an episode of Ray Donovan. That's what you gotta have. You gotta have like murder, you gotta have your
intrigue.
dad. Yeah, like in prison doing bad thing. You got to have it all to me
Right.
to get a pardon. Just saying.
Well, I found a
But who
couple
am I to
things that were
judge?
there are a couple things that are rather interesting about this anyway. I had to go deep dive last week into pardon powers, and here's the funny thing. The president can pardon and preemptively pardon anybody he wants. He has the only thing the president cannot forgive, if you will, or pardon or grant clemency to is an impeachment. That calls for that's for anybody as far as on the federal level.
Yeah,
He's limited to federal charges, by the way. So any of these people who are brought up on state charges, you have to talk to your governor about these sort of
yeah.
things.
Well, that's
Um,
true. That's true. I know that, and I think most other people. But most of what we're talking about
right.
regarding Fauci, Comey,
Yeah.
um, Ray, my goodness, the entire J6 investigative
That's
committee,
yep.
Benny Hanna, Benny Johnson, whatever
Yep.
his name is,
Adam Schiff will be in that little
Adam
realm
Schiff.
there too. Here's
Adam.
the funny thing,
Yeah,
and my question to you is, what do you think of this? The idea is, if you are pardoned, if one is pardoned, then one is pardoned from a crime they are technically guilty of, unless it's a
yeah,
pardon of miscarriage of justice. There are a couple of
yeah.
different kinds of pardons. This would not be a miscarriage of justice. This would be a pardon on crimes that they might be brought up for in the future during a certain
Well,
time span. And
yeah. Well,
according to Burdick versus United States, 1915, that acceptance carries a confession of guilt.
say that again.
According to the Supreme Court case Burdick versus the United States from back in 1915, an acceptance of a pardon carries a confession of guilt.
Oh, yeah. I said that on a tweet. It's like if you
Oh,
accept a
okay.
pardon, you're guilty. I
Right.
mean, that's kind of the deal, right?
The Supreme Court backs you up on that one too.
Yeah. So I was talking to a famous celebrity. I mean, a Hollywood royalty. You'll know. You know who it probably is. He was in a certain movie with certain funny stuff, and we'll just call him Bob. Bob and I were talking about this over the weekend,
Bob,
and I
yes.
don't want to get Bob in trouble, although I don't think he'd care.
Yeah, yeah, Bob.
Um, we're talking about the utter corruption of Adam Schiff and how Garvey would have been an amazing replacement. I think a lot of folks supported him, but the bottom line is Schiff could go to jail. I think based on the misrepresentation of classified information. By the way,
Mhm.
that's one of the things I hope Tulsi gets to the bottom of, and I hope they get a good team in to help Tulsi get to the bottom of that because so much of what was going on for the Russia collusion narrative was completely made up. It was what was ironic is people like Schiff were leaking information that wasn't true. So technically, you're not really compromising classified information because it's not real. But there has to be some other category that they can get you on for essentially presuming to use the system of authority that permits, like 51 intelligence officers. They
Right.
ought to. If I have anything to do with it, their clearances are gone permanently with prejudice, Chris. Not, I mean, I'm not going to shoot them, but I'm going to shoot their clearances. They'll be gone. Just saying. So.
As it should be, though, and that there's a consequence to accepting the guilt from a pardon, and that's one of them. Your clearance has to be gone.
Oh yeah.
Your access to other things has to be gone. Your perks probably. Here's another funny thing. The Constitution says that you brought up Adam Schiff. The Constitution says that the president can protect anybody from any federal charges as he or she wishes, but they cannot protect one from impeachment. Is there a chance that a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate Republican-led Senate technically could impeach Adam Schiff? There are probably a lot of, actually, I should say the Congress could impeach Schiff, and then Schiff could be brought up for impeachment in the Senate later on.
I don't know. Let's get a lawyer on and talk about all this. I'll reach out to a lawyer and we should have this discussion, because
makes a lot of sense.
Well, I was on a team that actually a legal team that won a case in front of the Iowa Supreme Court. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't have the mental capacity to go through the trigonometry of injustice this morning. So we got to get on into other things anyway. So
yes.
Anyway, so before we get too far down the road, because we're having a lot of guests on today, and I got to break away to do my other job, Newsmax, in a bit. So let me do the read. So let's talk today about your future. Your future should include a number of things to make you successful. Besides the idea of having prosperity, having freedom, having President Trump back in office, well, we're still running up debt no matter what. It's going to happen until he gets full control of the bureaucracy, which won't be overnight. We've seen Elon Musk doing his best to start getting kind of a framework around what they're going to do with the Doge. But that's not going to be a guarantee that people are going to see their personal economic freedom increase. So that's why we're asking you to reach out today to Paul Stone and his team at Colonial Metals. Colonial Metals Group is your team to go to, so they can explain the benefits of gold and silver, of hard metals, the very currency that goes back to the dawn of civilization and probably before. We need to look at what can be available to you and your family. What's that, Chris, that Kamala says? The future is important because the future is the future, right? Something like that.
Right. It's past the past. It's not the.
That's right. Unburden yourself from the past and burden yourself with gold and silver from Colonial Metals Group. 800-805-4034. If you want to do it the old-fashioned way, pick up the rotary phone. I hope you don't have a rotary phone. I know some do still.
Hey,
just saying. Cool. If you do, they're still cool. I have one upstairs. It's not on anything, but it looks cool. Anyway, 800-805-4034. Do the scan. Pick your phone up. Scan that. That'll take you to where you need to be. Or go to their website, colonialmetalsgroup.com/ed-henry. Do it today. You'll thank us later. All right, back to the show. So, Chris, one of the things that we want to talk about is Syria. So we have a guest coming in today to help us with that, which is great. Ruthie Bloom. Good morning, Ruthie. Welcome to
Ruthie.
Wake Up Patriots.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And so, man, oh man, you're new to the show. You're new to the Patriots, but I'm sure they're going to be happy to have this discussion. So obviously over the weekend, Syria fell. A lot of people were caught off guard. I think I can't say I saw it coming, but others did, because I think they were planning this downfall. So what do you think of the events over the weekend, and what do you think the most important thing we should be paying attention to next should be?
Well, there are two things. First of all, it's an incredibly important event that Syria fell, and we can tie it directly. The regime in Syria fell. We can tie it directly to the October 7th massacre last year, because the chain of events that led up to it. And what's most important is that it is nearing the end of the axis, the Iranian Shiite axis. So that's fantastic. But what we have to look out for is what is replacing the Alawite regime, Bashar Assad. And that is no good. That I can say.
Yeah.
So, Israel got to prepare very seriously.
Yeah. So let's do a little bit about So, Chris, just make sure that everybody understands Ruthie is an expert in this area. Ruthie has a long history of working this. So, introduce yourself to the folks here a little bit about who you are and what you've done, just so they understand how important what you're saying is.
Okay, well, I am senior contributing editor at the Jewish News Syndicate. I'm a columnist. And I've been living in Israel for the better part of 5 decades. I grew up in New York, but moved to Israel many moons ago, and I worked last year when the war broke out. I was working for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office as an advisor, writing speeches, etc. So let me think. Did I leave anything out? Other than that, I can tell you one thing. I call myself a right-wing bohemian. I don't know if that's relevant to you. And I am.
I like bohemians.
Yeah,
Right?
and we like right wing, so we're good. So we're in
That's
there.
right. You're good. Patriot, bohemian, all of those things. And one of the things I write and lecture about is U.S.-Israel relations and Middle East, etc. So that's who I am.
So I want to hit that right up front before we do the deeper dive into Syria. I have seen media reports I consider credible that the Israeli people are looking forward to President Trump jumping back in. I think they understand how badly served the Israeli people and the Israeli state has been under Joe Biden. As a matter of fact, Ruthie, you probably saw Joe Biden actually had an anti-Israeli, pro-Palestinian book that he walked out, and it's like, okay, dude, we kind of already knew this, but this puts the icing on the cake. How quickly do you think President Trump coming in is going to help the Israeli people get back to winning the war even better?
It's already helped before he was even inaugurated. Okay. The Trump effect, you can see it all over the place. First of all, imagine this. He makes he writes a post on Truth Social saying, basically warning Hamas, you better release those hostages. You better get this done before January 20th, etc. It's incredibly important for the leader of the free world to say, okay, the sheriff is back in town after all these years, after 4 years of a weakened America. It was purposely weakened. You have somebody saying now, we're done with this. Okay, the bad guys have got to go. Basically, that's Trump's message. And Israel most Israelis are really looking forward to it because we remember how President Trump was towards Israel in his first term. It was incredible. And the huge difference between the way that Biden behaved in his term in office, mainly doing things, for example, daring to withhold weapons that we had purchased from the United States. That's a huge thing. But it wasn't only that. It was constantly tying our hands, constantly saying, don't make this move, don't do that. I guarantee you that had Trump been in the White House when October 7th broke out, if it had even happened, but let's say it had, there's no that we would have won the war months ago. It's this constant having to pause to get White House support. Now, Israel is dependent on America, but under the good circumstances, we're allies and we understand it.
Right.
We need America, and America also needs us on the front lines of the Middle East, of the jihadists, fighting the jihadists. Biden didn't seem to understand that at all.
No, he didn't. And I want to go back at some point. I'd like to have you come back on the show and talk in more detail about the events leading up to 7 October, because I think that's something that has to be addressed. And I'm with you. I think the allowing the Iranians to have unlimited funding, virtually unlimited. I mean, $40 billion, that's pretty unlimited. And then being able to get the signal from the Biden administration, it's like, yeah, we don't care. Those things had huge impact. I think that created the space for the attack. With that said, I want to stick to Syria and Assad today. So my question to you next is relating to this very issue. These guys are Al Qaeda. They're terrorists. They've actually vowed, the people who have taken charge of Syria have said, oh yeah, next is Jerusalem. So
it's shades of the Arab Spring when the Muslim Brotherhood was taking over.
And that's what I want to get to.
The Western nations were celebrating.
Yeah.
Can I just want to,
Go
do
ahead.
you
Yeah.
remember back, do you remember back in the 90s when, in the 80s and 90s, when David Duke took over the Ku Klux Klan? And I'm using this as an example. He changed the Klan's image to be something of a kinder, gentler Klan, if you
Yeah.
will, dressing up in suits, going out there and meeting people with your faces open. This is what this this guy who broke away from Al Qaeda did. His regime is, and I love this Zero Hedge headline, kind of called Al Qaeda in suits, the kinder, gentler Al Qaeda, whereas the Western nations might be a little bit, maybe a little more celebratory than they should be in this respect.
Right. So Ruthie, but
Yeah.
I want to hit that. Let me frame that the way you just put it in there. So Ruthie, we've seen this movie before.
Right.
They tried this back in 2015, 2016, when Obama called, ISIS the junior varsity, because they were trying the same thing then. They were trying to use Al Qaeda. They were funding it via Erdogan. Deja vu all over again. And they found out that, Assad was too strong. The Iranians were there. Hezbollah was there. It didn't work. So instead of sticking to their guns, well, so to speak, they stuck their guns into Iraq. That's why they came in. It's like, hey, Iraq's easier. Let's go take Iraq. And that took us 2 years plus years to get that back into stable. And plus we have troops still in Syria now, all these years later, for no good reason, I might add. I don't want to go down that path this minute, but I do note that. So Ruthie, to you, this question is: do we really think because Hezbollah is gone now, this goes back to Obama. This is the continuation of Obama's failed policy picked up and implemented by Joe Biden. This is all this is. And do you think the results are going to be any better this time? Say that ISIS does not come back and Al Qaeda takes charge of Syria. Do you think this is going to be essentially Syria becomes a democracy, or does Syria become a version of Libya after Muammar Gaddafi was killed?
Okay, well, there's a lot to unpack there, but may I just say two things before I answer that question?
Yeah.
First is Obama didn't have failed policies. He set out to weaken America, and he succeeded. So you might say he was a very successful president in his own worldview. Number one. Number two, you mentioned Turkey and Erdogan. Turkey now is also very instrumental right now in Syria because Erdogan, who hates the West, he makes no bones about it. He hates Israel. He's an anti-Semite. He is now trying to become the big honcho there, all right? Because he wants to restore the Ottoman Empire, et cetera, and be the head of it. And the third thing is, it doesn't matter if you call it Al-Qaeda or ISIS or Hamas, whatever you want to call it. It's true that they're different in the sense that they're from different sects. Some are Sunnis, some are Shiites. Assad was an Alawite, but a jihadist by any other name is still a jihadist.
Right.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm just saying, right, exactly. And the funny thing is, they're doing on the PR side, they're actually doing what I'm not saying the right thing, but for lack of a better term, they're doing what is expected of Marxists or jihadists who come in and try to reassure the public, nah, don't worry about us. Nothing to see here. The ethnic minorities here, they're going to be okay. We're going to make sure we still have Assad people leading our government agencies or our government bureaucracies. So we're not going to go kill anybody. We're not going to execute anybody. We're not going to cause any problems. We're just taking over, but we're going to do it gently. They're making all the right PR moves when it comes to trying to influence the weaker West. Or let's say lure
Chris,
the weaker
it's like
West
that. It's
below.
like that Neil Young song, "Kindler, Gentler, Machine Gun Hand," right?
Exactly, and that's what the Arab Spring
I gotta go.
was. Right.
I'll see you back. I gotta go do Newsmax. I'll be back in a bit.
Okay, Tony Shaffer is doing Newsmax. That's going to be cool. He's talking more Syria.
9:30.
I got you, Ruthie, and of course, Eden Gordon Hill is going to be joining us at 9:30 as well. We're going to have a lot of fun with her. Tony comes back in a little while. So, Ruthie, let's get into this. The Arab Spring was celebrated by the Obama administration, who, and again, Tony brought up, he called ISIS the junior varsity. Well, he also called ISIS ISIL, the politically correct term. That's another issue we can deal with, and we can go down a whole hole on that one. But Ruthie, I want to get your point of view on this. How we're not fooled by this, or at least we're reserving judgment at the very least. But how much, how are the West, from where you sit, how do the Western nations, the European Union nations, the current U.S. administration, Canada, how do you see them looking at this overthrow of the Assad regime?
Well, Europe is pretty much finished, so I wouldn't take anything. Western Europe, okay, Eastern Europe, they're smarter.
Yeah.
That's a different ball game altogether. Okay,
Well, they have
they're
to
not.
live with, yeah, right.
But and again, America, Trump's America with a Republican Congress is a different ball game altogether as well. But listen, Al Julani, the name of the head of this of the rebels in Syria. Wouldn't you want to be seen as a reformer if you had a $10 million bounty on your head?
I agree. That is true. And a lot of these, well, we're in an era, and it's not even a new thing. It's over the last 150 years, these revolutionary types are seen as heroes from a lot of the a lot of, let's say, sometimes the populists, but a lot of times leaders from the left side of the proverbial aisle. They love their Che Guevara T-shirts. They love Fidel Castro and his cool personality and the fact that he could play baseball. They love the personalities of those types, and they still love and worship guys like Vladimir Lenin. They will, and when they saw the Arab Spring, these nations come, the Muslim Brotherhood, uh, we were actually warned by very few people. And it was, what was her name? It was the tall blonde, Ann Coulter, who was one of the first people to warn us about the Muslim Brotherhood. I believe that these governments, everybody watching, everybody who's concerned about Israel and the future of relations in the Middle East, should really be watching closely what's going on here and how they could infect, like a virus, the surrounding nations. From where you sit, what do you see there?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I'll just tell you something that's also very, very important for people to understand, especially Republicans of a certain, let's say, a certain worldview. And that is, make no mistake, Israel does not want or expect or need American troops on the ground. So let's eliminate that right off the bat for anybody who's concerned that support for Israel translates into sending American troops somewhere. No, Israel only expects to be supported, both moral support, which is it's no small thing, by the way, moral support, when you have a conflict that also has moral undertones. You're talking about evil, the axis of evil versus the good of the West, and that's one thing. Moral support, not to withhold weapons, and to help by warning those evil forces of evil that they have to shape up. Now, what you can see, Israel has already decided that we're not buying into any of this, reform, it's all wonderful. We have sent troops to not only along the border, of the northern border of the Golan Heights, but also into the buffer zone. And we are striking from the air all kinds of weapons depots, aiming also at the chemical weapons that Assad used against his own people. Assad's father did too. He slaughtered hundreds of thousands of people. So the reason we're doing that, okay, we're taking out all those weapons so that these rebels can't use them against us now.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I again, from their point of view, but let's count the fronts now. You mentioned that Israel is preparing itself at the Golan Heights. They're also preparing themselves at the West Bank and everything else. So now you're talking 4 fronts. That's 4 fronts they're fighting at the same time right now. You got the, well, make no mistake, Hezbollah's, this ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel, that's not going to last, and it's looking like it's going to die pretty soon. You got that, and it might be even more encouraged. Hezbollah might even be more encouraged to start striking again. You still have the Gaza issue. How long do you think before another front sort of develops here? This is getting nasty, and this is going to be something. Whereas I believe a lot of these nations, a lot of these rebel types, a lot of these anti-Israel terrorist leaders believe that there's a 1.5, well, now let's say 5-week window where they can act at this point up until Donald Trump takes office. So where are you seeing this going? Or am
Well,
I far off here, I should say?
well, for sure. First of all, there's great concern that Iran has to take the opportunity of these weeks because Iran is severely
Ah,
weakened, and it's only, I would say, its only now asset is its nuclear program. And so it'll probably, we're worried that it's going to be speeding up its ability to put nuclear warheads on ballistic missiles. That's one thing. Also, you mentioned forefronts, but actually it's more than that. Do you realize that today, as recently as today, this afternoon, a drone from the Houthis in Yemen smashed into a building in central Israel, did
ah.
extreme damage. Thank God nobody was killed or hurt. It was by a miracle. I got to tell you, there are more miracles going on here than you can imagine. If you saw the destruction that that drone wrought, and so as I said, we have the Houthis from Yemen, we still have Iran, we still have Hamas in Gaza, even though it's completely weakened, but they're still holding 100 hostages there. So
Right.
there's Hamas, and there's Lebanon, and there's Syria and Iraq, the militias from Iraq. Let's not forget. Okay, and then there is one last front, I would say, maybe in air quotes, that we're contending with, and that's global anti-Semitism and the lawfare being conducted against Israel and its leaders at the International Criminal Court.
Yes, that's another one. You can't. It's like they're fighting off from every angle. Now you're right. Up in the air, legally, you have the ground fronts and everything else, and they all know they only have 5 more weeks left to pounce. Because look, Donald Trump already has said a bunch of things. NATO, UN, we're not going to help you with this with this one world government thing. We're not going to. If you guys don't pay your fair share for anything in NATO, we're not going to be part of you guys either. Uh, Mike, and what's also going on is the Trump administration is probably going to keep moving forward with the Abraham Accords. We can see this hurting that, but now let's just say more forces are jumping in on Israel. Uh, how do you see this affecting the Arab Accords in the future? Excuse me, the Abraham Accords in the future.
Well, I see it affecting those accords the way they were formed in the first place, which is peace through power, peace
There
through
we go.
strength, peace through strength. Any kind of wishy-washy agreements, any kinds of lip service to two-state solution with the Palestinians, and all kinds of things like that, that right away endangers those accords. I know that people like to say, no, Saudi Arabia wants a Palestinian state, and this one and that one. They say it, but it's a lie. What they want is to make sure they want to see Israel and America be the strong horse in the world and in the Middle East.
Oh yeah.
That's what they want, and that's how you get peace agreements.
Right, and Saudi Arabia doesn't want the idea of some neighboring rebels coming in and infiltrating their borders either. That's another thing. Look, they know where the cash cow is. They know the cash cow is in the West. They know the cash cow. The cash cow is not going to help them out, and they're not going to be able to sell their oil if America produces a lot more. And they kind of antagonize Israel too. But they find that kind of partnership and bringing in other Arab nations like the UAE, the wealthier. Interestingly enough, the wealthier Arab nations are the ones that are signing on with the Abraham Accords, and I find that interesting and hopeful for the future. But it's still these terrorist nations, these nations whose regimes cannot really control their populations, and sometimes, and in the case of Iran and you're saying Turkey now, maybe covertly sponsors these things.
Well, yes. By the way, Turkey, again, you mentioned NATO. Turkey is a member of NATO,
Yeah,
for crying out
yeah,
loud.
I know. Yeah, how do we allow that stuff to happen? But hey,
You know, as I think it's Elon Musk who has been tweeting quite a bit about saying, "Let Orwell be fiction again." Okay, and that's really true. But I will say something. I would like to return to one other
right.
terrible thing that the Biden administration did. It totally endangered the Abraham Accords because the first thing that Biden and Secretary of State Blinken did to undermine those accords was to go to attend a summit in Israel, in the Negev, about the Abraham Accords, and talk about inviting the Palestinians to it. Also interfering in a way that was totally useless. I mean, it was harmful. And the whole beauty of the Abraham Accords was, it said, it was a message also to the Palestinians. Peace in the Middle East is not dependent on whether you guys have a state or don't have a state that you keep rejecting, okay? You want to join in the peace accords, please, you're welcome. Trump said it. We'll help you. We'll do what we can to help you. But if you don't and you keep rejecting things, okay, too bad. Goodbye. And Biden wanted to undo that. And over the course of those 4 years, we saw, after Saudi Arabia had really indicated that it was on the way to joining and even giving tacit approval to the Gulf states, what did it do? We heard reports that it was suddenly sending delegations to Iran. All of a sudden, its mortal enemy, Iran, was like, okay, if America's not on our side anymore, if America's the weak horse and weakening Israel, we better hedge our bets here. Biden did that.
Yeah. Well, again, he's part of that, as you mentioned, the global or the Western anti-Semitic movement. He's not going to come out and say what he is, but he is going to join those Western nations that have been trying to condemn Israel. And you're right, bringing up international lawfare. Big joke, by the way, Israel, and allowing, like you said, allowing the likes of Turkey to join NATO. So interestingly enough, NATO brings in Turkey. Well, they're a bunch of turkeys too. How about that? Different kind of turkeys, but I think we know what we're talking about. Ruthie, I want to thank you for being with us today, and I really appreciate you coming on with us last minute. Let's keep you going. Let's bring you on again very soon, because these are very important topics, and I want to thank you for getting up nice, bright and early and talking to us on Wake Up Patriots, and talking to our Patriots here.
Guess what? I didn't have to get up early. I'm 7 hours ahead of you, so it's afternoon for me. But
Ahead. Okay, I'm thinking you're 7 hours behind.
No,
that's right. You're 7 hours ahead of me. That's good.
Also, I would be very happy to come again, and I appreciate your having had me on today.
Okay. Well, see, that's the thing. I'm wearing my watch upside down. I think that's where the problem was. But I do appreciate you coming on with us, and we're definitely going to have you back in the future, because as this develops, we're really going to need to talk with you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for being with us. And with that, let's bring in Eden Gordon Hill, who's been with us before, our master of reading. And want to thank again Ruthie for being with us. She's going to be back, and we're going to be talking more Syria. I'm talking more Middle Eastern relations here. But Eden, Tony, by the way, will be back with us in just a few moments. He's doing some important discussion on Newsmax right now. Yeah. He's going to be doing more of that here. I was
watching him. I saw him.
I know. The only problem with doing this show, we're helping Tony out and doing the show while he's on Newsmax and taking that baton for him and the lead microphone, is I don't get to watch him. So that's another thing. However, that's what Newsmax TV is for. You can actually go back after the show and watch Tony. So see, it's amazing how technology works. But Eden, let's go. We talked about what's going on in Syria. You pretty much caught up. You're abreast of the situation, if you will. Let's go. Let's bring this back to America.
Yes.
Because Ruthie Bloom brought up the Western, the free world, the European and wannabe European global anti-Semitic movement, basically aimed at Benjamin Netanyahu and a strong Israel. They want to make sure Israel either disappears or is weak. All right, I'm going to go as bold as to say that. That's fine. That's my opinion, not everybody else's opinion here. But let's take a step into what's going on here. I'm looking at Joe Biden speaking after this, and
Chris, you're already getting me laughing first thing in the morning. Okay, what are we going to talk about? Oh, Biden.
Joe Biden. Let's go with Joe Biden. Yeah, oh, Biden. I like that one because I keep hearing that. I love it. I always called Obama Bungler. But let's get into this. Joe Biden immediately takes advantage of the situation and finds another means to waste taxpayer money.
Yes.
New constitution, new government that serves all Syrians. The process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves.
What does this guy actually believe that the Syrian people are going to have a say in what's going on when Al Qaeda Light takes over? First off, the Al Qaeda Light was only one of several rebel entities that were trying to overthrow Assad over the last 13 years. This is not a people's movement. This is an Al Qaeda Light movement.
It is. It totally is. Looking at the screen, I'm going to say this. He looks like he's doped up. He looks like he could use a nap. And finally, I don't, like you said, Chris, I'm going to agree with you. I really don't think he believes what he's saying. But when I was watching these clips before I hopped on with you guys for the Wake Up Patriots this morning, my first thought was all the money that's going to Syria, all the money that's going overseas to like Al Qaeda Light, like you mentioned. And I'm sitting here in the great state of North Carolina, also the same home, to Tony, living in the great state of North Carolina. What about the western part of the state? What about all the victims of Hurricane Helene and how they were given $750 or what? Or less. And so we have all of our taxpayer dollars going over to these Al Qaeda Light organizations, but yet we have American people, families, children, grandchildren, people who have been lost, people who have died, and they have nothing, absolutely nothing. Okay, do you want to get me fired up, Chris? Because I have got 3 cups of coffee.
Let's let Biden get you fired up, because I'm going to get the Patriots fired up too, and I want to hear what you think about this, Patriots, because this is even more disgusting as it goes forward.
States will do whatever we can to support them, including through humanitarian relief to help restore Syria after more than a decade of war.
Okay, so basically, Joe Biden has just told you all that more American taxpayer money is going to go overseas. Even you just mentioned North Carolina. Again, FEMA also wastes a lot of money that should have gone towards North Carolina on the immigration issue and helping move migrants, and that's another thing. That's another disgusting overspending of the Biden administration. But let's just say this: I understand we have to give humanitarian aid in certain areas, but we do not, and we're under no obligation to rebuild a Syrian government run now by former Al Qaeda. Excuse me, Al Qaeda Light.
Yeah, Al Qaeda Light. I'm going to sit here and say this to the Patriots audience who are tuning in. I think they would all agree with me that we've had 3.5, almost 4 years of America apologizing to international dictators and basically us bowing down to dictators and communists and Al Qaeda Light, like you said, versus the American people they have had their backs turned on. They have seen an administration that has turned the backs on the American people, and the American people spoke on November 5th. And, I was sitting there saying, Chris, I was listening to Trump and his commentary from the weekend and being at Notre Dame. And I sat there and said, he is now the president. He may not be sworn in, but people are looking to Trump as the leader of the free world. And actually, could we bring stability back to the Western part of this world?
So maybe what we need for your Patriots reading list here is something about recent Syrian history and these rebel factions that were fighting against Syria. The Assad regime. Let's make no mistake. The Assad regime was tyrannical. They tortured their own citizens. They were out to destroy Israel, obviously, but they were kind of busy with their own thing. It was a third world nation destined to be a fourth world nation if the Assad family kept running it. These rebel factions, they're from all over the place. We knew we were not going to be fooled by this by the Arab Spring 2 here. We're just not going to be. The fact is, we also shouldn't let the media try to fool us. We shouldn't let Joe Biden try to fool us. We shouldn't let the European Union try to fool us, because all this is the idea is, hey, look at this. We're going to have another strong theocracy running another Arab nation that neighbors Israel. Yes. So then they can kind of squeeze Israel out a little bit too. And that's almost where I believe this mentality is. But it sounds like some good patriotic reading, if you will, right?
Yes, I was going to say to you, Chris, what kind of patriotic reading could we bring? Because All American Book Club's all about pro-America and what we can do. So instead of erasing American history, instead of taking down all the generals that don't agree or taking away like the name Bragg, nope. I'm not taking that personal or anything. Let's incorporate into the American way. Let's incorporate back into our culture true American history and pro-America reading that we can then know how to combat what's happening around the world.
Now, let's take that as an interesting discussion here, because now you just open up a rabbit hole for me. Who decides this? And this is something that I find interesting. I know America was severely dumbed down thanks to Zinstery, the over adaptation of basing curricula on the people's history of
Mhm.
the U.S. and people's history of the world from the Howard Zinn people. It oversimplified the world into two different categories: oppressors and victims, which
Mhm.
made people stupider. That was also helped out by the Department of Education. 92-1 has to be dissolved. All right, that's again my opinion. If it's not
Yep.
yours, that's fine.
Oh no,
And
I agree. I
okay,
agree. Yep.
then, but let's get into this. The idea of teaching patriotic history is almost the same thing. And this is where I get to. We should teach citizenship. I do believe this. That we should teach citizenship and the responsibility of citizenship, like what used to be done back in the uh, early and mid part of the 20th century.
Mhm.
That's important. Teaching pro-American history kind of it does borderline, it does sound like propaganda in a lot of ways. But why? But history generally falls pro-American anyway. If you really look at it, even if you don't try to, even if you don't try to teach what we call pro-American or pro-patriotic history, you
Mhm.
look back, it really does
Mhm.
fall. We generally find ourselves on the right side of history, save for maybe Vietnam War.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I'm oversimplifying, but you understand that
Yeah.
not teaching what some people might think is patriotic history still falls under pro-American because
Yeah.
of the way we are, the way this nation affected world history, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I was going to give a couple recommendations out to the audience. Chris, you brought me over, and I've been doing the 25 Days of Christmas on the All American Book Club,
Love it.
giving a lot of recommendations to my audience and those who tune in. And a couple recommendations I'd give to this historical audience and those who tune in here are books on George Washington, are books on Dwight D. Eisenhower. And something else I want to shoot your way is this. As we head into a pro-America agenda, thanks to the new president-elect, one thing I sit there and think about is our kids, our next generation, have no clue what 9/11 stood for, have no clue what happened and what the Greatest Generation stands for. They have no clue who fought for their freedoms. They don't even get it. And I sit there and say, why don't we get some of our kids? I'm just going to use the Bragg recommendation right now. Fort Bragg, not Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg, and the 82nd Airborne Museum over there. Our kids don't have a clue what that even stands for. And so, what I'm saying to this audience, wherever you are based, I am saying to you to get your kids, your grandkids, and go to those museums that you are able to get to educate this next generation. Because you know what, Chris, and I know Tony talks about this all the time. We have a now new president-elect who's pro-military, who's pro-homeland security. But you know what? Our chaplain corps and our services have lost dramatically in the numbers of recruitment. And so that's why I'm saying to this audience, we need to educate, but we also need to get them involved and what it means selfless service, not selfish service by being on your phone 24/7, seeing if you're going to get a TikTok like and see how many bumps you get. I mean, seriously.
Well, we need likes and that's not to say don't give us likes and bumps here on Wake Up Patriots, okay? And Eden, I'm sure likes the likes and bumps on the
All American Book
show, right?
Club.
On the All American Book Club here on WMAL, by the way. That's a great
Okay.
station. I love that station.
I know you guys. I know. Tony loves being on it too. It's
Oh
a great,
yeah. That's he has a blast on with Larry. That's just
yeah.
great stuff.
Yeah,
I,
no, it's a
I
great station. But no, I don't want to take away from the likes and the bumps, but I do want to take away from this next generation who are glued to their phones and
Right.
their necks need chiropractor adjustments every day because they're hunched over like this, waiting to see what the next bump is. And the thing is, they can't even describe what 9/11 was. They don't even know what the Greatest Generation is. That's my point. That's my point in getting these books in front of, these parents again and these grandparents and really reinstilling the American life.
Well, that's part of my. If you want to talk about reasons why we should get rid of the Department of Education,
Yes.
that's one of them right now.
Yes.
You've noticed that America has gotten collectively selfish and stupider since the mid '90s.
Yes,
And of course,
absolutely.
we've been falling on math and science. I
Yep.
mean, we've been falling behind underdeveloped nations. Okay, it's been bad, and we've been great, by the way, with self-esteem.
I'm Sorry, Chris, you're killing me.
And participation trophies. We've been absolutely fantastic with those. And that all directly correlates with the Department of Education. And all these liberals who are wanting, because you had the 20-year-olds who only known in America with a full Department of Education. Well, the education system is going to fall apart because we don't have a Department of Education. Look at him. Again, not teaching history or proper history falls into this. We had the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and things were fine. We had an intelligent, electorate at many points. We had young people who were on the ball. And look, I'm not a far lefty or anything like that. I never would have been when I was in college, except maybe I experimented. I admit I experimented becoming Democrat for about 2 months just to try to get babes. Back when I was a college freshman.
Oh my gosh! And where did you go to school, Chris?
I went to a few different schools because I had to piece it up and work and things like that and come
Yep,
back.
I get that.
But
Yep.
I tried it. I'm admitting this. This is my first step to recovery. I admit it. I tried to be a Democrat for a couple months, and when I was like 18 to get babes, it made me so sick and disgusted that I just figured I decided to stop this because I just started puking my mouth every time I was listening to some of these people. And I was 18 at the time. I mean, hey, there was a time where I was actually for getting rid of the Electoral College, but then I turned 13.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, you're a hoot. You're funny, Chris. I love it. So talk to me about Wake Up Patriots and what they're looking for their holiday Christmas list. Oh, Tony's here.
Tony is back.
Hey,
on to Tony.
good
And
morning.
let's talk about the holiday Christmas list with Tony.
Merry Christmas, Tony.
Merry Christmas. I've got my stuff up, but not all together, so I don't have anything here. But it's good to see you're so Christmassy, and you look pretty snug as a bug in a rug there too. It's like you're all all dressed up to be snuggly, so that's nice.
I am. It's really Tony. It's cold here in North Carolina. You know that. I tell you what. And my husband doesn't put on the temperature.
I know. No, I know. I've suffered through that.
All right, Tony, I want to replay something for you because I got Eden's comments on this.
All right.
I wanted this for you too, because this is the funniest comment all week, probably the last couple of weeks by Joe Biden. I want to just get the very beginning of this and just get this.
All right.
Listen to it carefully, this one.
With a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. This process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves.
All right, think about that. Joe Biden is actually either he thinks this, which will make him stupid, or he's over manipulative and is trying to tell us that the Syrian people are actually going to have a say in its new constitution after Al Qaeda light takes over.
I think he was referring to his morning constitution when he gets up and has to go and change his opinions.
That's going to be built by the Syrian
I think
people, I guess.
That's what he's talking about. Yeah, I don't think he understands the Constitution. It's the Constitution that he has to do in the morning. So, let's talk about that for a second, because I mean, anybody who watches that, I think it's true. The whole thing was like 11 minutes. The whole thing was like 11 minutes, and he first off starts slurring his words. Like every other word is like what? Okay. And that's the first bad thing. And secondly, yeah, he doesn't know what the hell he's saying. This is all Obama 2.0 policy playing out. I just said this on Newsmax. This is all about ISIS was the first run at Assad. It didn't work because the Iranians were too strong and supporting with Hezbollah, and Russia was still there too. So they couldn't. ISIS found it was too hard to destabilize Assad. So let's go to Iraq, and let's destabilize them, is what they did. So it took us 2 years to get that fixed. And now, because the Israelis have righteously taken Hezbollah out, this is like a Jenga game. You know, you take out that one piece and it becomes unstable. Well, you know, this kind of collapsed the Jenga of Syria. So it's now in pieces. The question becomes, how do we come through it? And Joe Biden doesn't get what we're talking about. Joe Biden right now is focused on what he can do to protect the people who protected him. That's why they're talking about all these preemptive pardons, which I think is on the agenda. So
yeah, that and his next nap. That's what he's looking for too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I wanted to mention seeing Jill Biden and Trump at Notre Dame this weekend. That was an interesting meme. What were your thoughts?
It was.
I mean, I'm surprised. She didn't wear. I mean, she wore red for election day.
This is what he's worried about right there. That's what he's
Well, I
worried
mean,
about right
she wore
there.
commie red. That's a different kind of
He's-
red.
He's
Yeah,
gonna
there you go.
he's gonna be the spokesman for Depends. That's what he's worried about now.
He's getting ready for that, right?
Anyway,
No,
so
but
but
it's
not,
very
no, back to Jill.
Yeah.
Jill was glowing like a school girl, with sitting next to her best crush. I think it was great.
Yeah.
And there was a picture at the same event where she's next to Kamala, like
Yes.
looking like,
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly it.
That's
Yeah.
how that's how Emhoff sits next to her. So, I mean, come on.
But it was interesting to watch, like Prince William and Jill, especially. They had Google eyes when they saw Trump, especially Prince William. He just started drooling at the mouth when he saw
know.
President Trump for the first time. I mean, that
he
was pretty
probably
cool.
he probably said, "What do you want me to do with Harry?"
Yes, exactly.
Well,
What do you want me to do with it?
maybe they can deport Meghan Markle or something like that. There we go.
I've already thought about that.
Meghan Markle is like a sex symbol for people who are horribly unsexy. So it's true.
She's
It's
one of
like-
those. She's one of those 75% of the celebrities that need to keep their mouth shut during an election. Basically.
I mean,
So-
all the time would be nice, but
Yeah,
okay, during an
There
election.
they are.
Yep, there they are.
They
Hey,
look cute
you know
together.
what he was telling her? It's like, hey, I know where the creature of Notre Dame is. If you want me to go to show you,
Yeah, well, that's
I
Rachel
know where the
Levine's
hun-
office.
I know where
isn't
the hunchback's at. If you want to come with me,
It's Rachel Levine's office.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. Look at that. Look at Ashley. Look at that outfit that she has on.
Yeah,
She,
Well, that's
she,
by the way, that's electrified. I don't know if you know, but that's like anti-Hunter Biden. It's like got batteries in it, so the moment you touch, you get shocked. So it's to deter Hunter from touching her. So just saying.
I would have probably worn something a little bit more royal for the opening of Notre Dame. That's for sure. Now, there you
there's-
go. There you go.
Yeah.
I want to wait for my wait for the daily or the weekly Jake Sullivan jokes. I was anticipating that for you, Tony.
Jacopotamus.
Hey,
So Jake has been up to no good. So
Tony, when are you coming back to my show? I've been doing the 25 days of Christmas and highlighting
Let me
all
know.
the Christmas books.
Cool.
so I mean, just let me know. I've got a heavy schedule today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. We could do something after that. I got to be at Newsmax's holiday party on Wednesday, which means I have to be up. I'll be on there with Chris. Oh my God, Chris Plant, our friend
Plant,
Chris.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be
yeah.
on his show, The Right Squad, with Mercy Schlepp for their.
Yep, the whole crew.
And then I have to be at the Army Navy game this weekend, so I'll be back in DC
You want
for
tickets?
that.
Oh, I so wanted tickets. Oh my gosh.
I was forced into getting tickets. Just
You
saying,
were
so.
forced. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like you need to go. It's like, oh, I don't want to go. It's like, no, you need to go. It's like I don't want to go. It's like, no, you need to go. It's like
Oh, you need
I need to go. It's like you need to go. So
Are you sitting with Trump and DeSantis? Is that the plan?
I'm not sitting. No, but their being there is one of the reasons I have to be there. Just
Yeah,
saying,
that's
so.
what I kind of figured. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So,
it's like
I'm really-
I was told.
I'm really curious about your thoughts on Pete.
There
Pete
we
and I are
go.
friends. Full disclosure. No, Pete and I are friends. We've been texting. I'm not gonna hide. It's like, no, we're friends.
No, I just
I'm
mean
not-
for the national security from the defense.
Well, no, I think he's going to be. So again, I don't know. I'm going to tell you, just if he wasn't a friend, what I think of him. What I think of him is, he's got actual degrees. He's a smart guy.
Mhm.
He's got an intellect which actually allows for practical thinking, which is rare. People who go through Princeton and get all these Harvard things, a lot of the time they get sucked into the system. He didn't get sucked in.
Yeah.
He got some, I think, critical tools for critical thinking. That's why I look at it, because
Mhm.
he goes against the grain on a lot of the things he's proposing, and he's very articulate about it. He's written 2 books.
Mhm.
So that's the first point. Secondly, he went into combat. I don't care what you say. If you get a Bronze Star,
Mhm.
you go into combat, you've worked some things which
Yeah.
most Americans never see.
Right.
And like literally the Washington Post reporter who attacked him in that article.
Mhm.
said, oh, well, everybody gets Bronze Stars if they go into combat. Really, dude? You didn't get a Bronze Star. Does that mean you failed? I mean, just these people don't listen to what they're
Yeah.
freaking saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
of course he did, and he got another ARCOM, Army Commendation Medal,
Yeah.
for actually being on an air assault.
Mhm.
I
Right,
just got a nice certificate for being on an air assault. He actually got an award for it.
right. These
So,
aren't
I'm just
participation
saying.
trophies like they're used to.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I got a nice note saying, "Hey, you got to go on an air assault." And I did. No, I'm not joking. I mean, I pulled all this out for obvious reasons. Yeah, I got my little certification from
Mhm. Mhm.
being in the Crystals Task Force, going with the Army Rangers on an
Mhm.
air assault.
Mhm.
So my point being is that he's
Yeah.
actually done the hard work of
Mhm.
establishing a solid foundation to work from. And I don't
Mhm.
want to hear this, oh, he's never managed big organizations. That's
Yeah.
why you have deputies. You
Yeah.
have people you bring in to
Very
actually do the hard work of managing the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So he's an officer. He understands how to assess a situation, look at what end state you want to achieve, pick people to help you achieve that end state, and go to work. So I'm very strongly supporting Pete. Period. I am. So
And what about the VA secretary pick? What are your thoughts on him?
VA. Who did they pick? Who did they pick for VA? I didn't even know.
It was a former Georgia guy. I forget his name. I think he had I think he was on a podcast. I don't know him very well. He was
I don't know him.
He was an Air Force chap also. And I was
No, I don't know.
that's why I wanted to ask you about Pete, only because knowing his work with Concerned Veterans for America, it would have been
Yeah.
great to see somebody like him in the VA from the standpoint of everything that's gone on in the VA.
Yeah.
That was my thought. That was my thought.
No, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know the guy's name. I'd have to look into that more because I've been so focused on Pete, just saying.
Yeah, Pete.
So
Yeah.
been a lot of focus on him. So
Yeah, I'm working on that too now.
I think I'd like to believe President
Doug
Trump will
Collins.
pick people who.
Yes, that's
Doug.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Yes.
No, I don't know Doug, but no, I believe Doug will do a great job. I don't know
I hear
him.
good things.
Yeah, but I think he's very, very committed to doing those things like Wilkie, Secretary Wilkie did when he was Veterans Secretary.
Yes.
I think he'll be another good one.
Yes.
So yeah, I think Trump's going to be very deliberate in who he picks. I think he's got a larger plan in mind. And this is the thing too. It's like everybody talks about 4G chess. Like, well, yes and no. He's got amazing instincts. He knows how to pick the right people to do things. And that's what happened last time. And I think I told you before, Eden.
Yeah.
People were trying to suppress his instincts, especially John Kelly. When
Yep.
I went in to see John Kelly about briefing President Trump on what we knew was corruption at the FBI and a plan to deal with it, had to do with the Army doing a review of all the FBI's foreign counterintelligence cases. I had a legal review done by Judicial Watch. It was going to be legal. I briefed Mike Pompeo. I briefed Joe Dunford, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. They said, yeah, we're on board with this, but the president's got to approve it. So I'm talking to Kelly.
Mhm.
And I said, John, I need to talk to the president about this to get his approval. And Kelly looks at me and says, Tony, I am never going to allow you to see the president because all you're going to do is inflame his instinct.
Seriously.
Because he has good instincts.
I remember you saying that. Okay, so let me
Don't
ask
give him any ideas. Yeah, there
I
you
know
go.
I know
Don't give him any ideas. He might do something.
Yeah.
So
I want to put in a request. This is a very minor request, but can we make sure Bragg is back to Bragg and we can
Oh
remove
yeah.
Liberty?
Oh
Can we
yeah.
do that
Oh
immediately?
yeah.
Please,
Okay.
please.
Who do you want to replace him with?
So what?
No,
I
he
guess
wants to bring back Fort Bragg, Fort Hood.
I think you meant
Yeah.
Alvin Bragg. I think I meant
Alvin
Alvin
Bragg.
Bragg for a minute.
No,
Oh my
no,
gosh.
No.
Fort,
We don't want him
yeah.
either, by the way.
I'm going to change the names back to what they originally should.
And so,
Yes,
and also,
yes.
Eden, we're going to change the name of the Pentagon to Fort Fumble. Yeah, that's what they do. They fumble. So we'll just like this. Yeah, we don't want to call it. We'll call it Fort Fumble.
What's
Okay,
the budget?
then you
Right
call him
now?
the New York
What's
Giants.
the budget? What's the budget for the defense budget right now? What's it at?
Oh, it's upwards of 600. I think it's like 700 to 800
lot of
billion
money.
dollars.
Yes.
It's
A lot of
out
money.
of control. So let me hit that real quick.
Yeah.
With Doge and with Pete.
Yes. Yes.
And with some other folks I know they're talking about bringing in, it's like, oh, they're going to go into that and just cut things out. They hide things all the time within the DoD budget that we don't even know. And one of my concerns, I'm going to bring this up, Eden, because this pertains to your audience and our audience and the Patriots. My friend Louis Gohmert, Congressman Gohmert, once got upset with me because I made a protected disclosure to him. That's a whistleblower. That's technical for whistleblower confession. a protected disclosure to him regarding some technology we developed in DoD that got used against the American people.
Mhm.
And he said, how did you not understand that would eventually be? It's like, because we're DoD, we do things to focus on bad guys. My issue is, and I think this is where Tulsi's important.
Yeah.
Whoever gets picked to do intelligence stuff, you have to look at what they've taken from legitimate intelligence operations and military operations and taken that and turned it back on the American people. And I'm telling you, that's going to be one of the most frightening things of all the technology, all the money being spent to divert things from protecting the American people to being used on the American people. So that's going to be one of the things that people look at.
Well, I mean, Chris and I obviously talked about that with regard before you hopped over, from the money that's going to foreign humanitarian crises, like we heard Biden.
Oh my God, yes.
But I mean, look at our state, Tony. Look at North Carolina.
Yep.
Look at what's happening. We have so many poor Americans who have been suffering at the hands of Helene, and yet they've seen 750 buckaroos. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
So what are tell me what
I live in Eastern North Carolina. It's the poorest part of the state.
Yeah.
I mean, people here literally live in trailers, and I'm not joking. And I'm not saying it as a bad thing, because they're happy people, they're good people, but they see the economic disparity where even here in the state, Raleigh, Charlotte get all the money. I mean, all the lefties keep all the money in the big cities, and we get nothing out here. And then you get a tragedy where the governor vetoes the bill of trying to get the money out to the people who are supposed to have it. And he was overridden, I think. But Roy Cooper, blue-blooded, hardcore Democrat, vetoed the money. So, and then Joe Biden, that very same speech we commented on, pledged to rebuild Syria. Really? Why don't you rebuild Asheville? I mean, this is insane. It's totally insane.
Yeah, but this is what they do. They try to pull out this humanitarian aid and everything to make themselves look good within the international community, because they all know everything's at taxpayer expense, and they don't have to live with the consequences of a place like North Carolina or Asheville, because they're the ones living in their ivory towers somewhere. What they're living with the consequences of soon, hopefully, is buying those stupid houses on the coast because they're afraid of global warming, which, by the way, is not going to happen, because that's why they're buying those big houses on the coast.
Of course.
Right.
Come on. I was talking earlier today before you came on about a celebrity, the Hollywood and basically royalty.
Yes.
I can't say his name, but we'll call him Bob.
Yes.
Who may live right down from Obama on the beach. Just saying. And Obama took and teared down the not those Bobs. He's a good Bob. Anyway, my friend Bob, who those who pay attention probably know who I'm talking about.
Right.
Anyway. Bob pointed out that Obama tore down the Magnum PI house and built this big compound there in Hawaii on the water. So I don't think the seas, and didn't Obama say he's going to stop the rise of the sea? So what do we have to worry about? It's all done, right? It's all
there
done.
you go. Well, he apparently, to the Democrats, he walks on water. So yeah, what do you?
I don't know. It doesn't look like he walks on water currently, though. It looks like there's still
he's bubbling under right now.
I know his chef doesn't walk on water because he was drowned by it.
Oh, there it is.
That's gotta hurt. Oh, hey yo, that's the hey yo for the day. Hey yo.
Oh wow.
You know what, Tony, going back to what you said about Eastern North Carolina, my husband and I took Rosie 2.0, our 1951 International, and did a Christmas parade this weekend. And I drove and he was throwing candy, and we both came away looking in the faces of Eastern North Carolina saying, we didn't realize how poor parts of the state really are. And it choked me up as I was looking in the faces of these kids and families. You could tell that they were out there wanting to celebrate Christmas, but you could also tell that they were out there with absolutely nothing.
So I'm a commissioner here in Chowan County now, and I got the
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And so on my tour, one of the things that we do have social services set up for poor families to get some Christmas. So I was very proud to go there. I'm sorry, I'm in many ways still a Democrat. I like this stuff. It's like, no, I mean, we should have this available for poor families. It's one of those things that we have a hybrid county state and federal government system that allows for these resources to be focused and things to be made available for poor families. I think it's wonderful. I think there's nothing worse than being a kid, and Toys for Tots does a similar thing with the Marines. There's nothing worse than being an adult, working your ass off, and then not being able to have something special for your kids. So I support this sort of thing 110%. By the way, I think we've all become JFK Democrats, right? This is like 1962 and we're all Democrats. Because that's how far the Overton windows moved, So
just call me Jackie O. I love her.
Well, we got to go. Well, Jackie O, we got to go because we're overtime, right, Chris?
All right.
Anybody then is apparently far right now. So that's where it is.
I know. JFK is a far right
I'm going to eat like
legendary
Aristotle
figure,
for breakfast.
So anyway, well, see.
Merry Christmas, you guys.
Well, we got to go. So I want to have you back soon, especially talk more about Christmas and what it means.
Yeah.
Let me know when you want me to come on your show. Chris can arrange that.
Absolutely.
And then, Patriots, we got to go. I mean, I know we always get complaints because we get into good stuff like this and we got to go.
Yeah.
And so I'll talk to our evil overlord, Ed Henry. Good morning, Ed. And see what we can do in the new year to expand the show a little bit. So anyway, we love you all, Patriots. Eden, thank you for being here. It's always a great vibe and a lot of fun to talk about current events with you.
Absolutely.
And Chris, I'm just thankful that you didn't wash up on a beach in Santa Barbara like Ed McMahon. Just saying, I appreciate you being
and that's a good thing.
That's right. Being a stable sidekick who actually doesn't end up wandering down the pier and falling off into the Santa Monica Harbor. I love
that. Again, I have to be strong enough to lift those big checks, so we're in good shape.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll be back tomorrow morning again for another great episode of Wake Up Patriots, and we'll be waking up then. Thanks for being here.